So in today's video, I want to talk to you about whether a postural brace is of any benefit to you in terms of improving your posture, when it may or may not be appropriate to use a shoulder brace, and the impact it may have on your neck pain, shoulder pain, or upper back dysfunction. Because clinically we know that the positions and the shapes that you might get into the most throughout the day, the quality of those shapes can have the potential to influence or even cause your general aches and pains and dysfunctions. And if you're someone who's trying to improve your posture, asking whether a postural brace is necessary is something that I get asked a lot clinically, and something I think needs a specific answer and specific context to understand fully the role that this can play in any potential rehab or prevention of aches and pains. And I think the number one most important thing to consider if you're contemplating using a postural brace is the context behind why you want to use that brace. Because if you're someone who has long-standing persistent pain, or you're someone who just wants to make sure that you prevent any onset of dysfunction in the future, your attitudes towards this brace are potentially vastly different in terms of how often you might wear it and then how long you might wear that for. Because for me clinically, the biggest thing that I try and get across to most people who are thinking about using or buying a postural brace is that we don't want to make it a crutch for you long term. We want to get in there, we want to use it to solve a problem that you may be having, and eventually get to the stage where you don't feel like you need this anymore going forwards. Because one of the things that we know happens to the body is the body adapts to whatever you ask it to do, whether you know that it's happening, whether you don't know that it's happening, whether you want it to or not. The body will always adapt and react and morph itself to suit the environment that it's in the most. So if you're someone who wants to use a postural brace and keep that on for days and weeks on end, there will be some positive changes that may happen in terms of holding you back and giving your brain and your nervous system a chance to decrease some of that pain. It may help reduce some of the muscular tightness, the joint stiffness that we tend to accrue from being in a less than perfect shape, but it'll also take the onus off your muscular system that holds you there actively in the first place. So it's never recommended to use these long term because we want to make sure that your body does the work eventually. We need the muscles and the tissue in your body to hold you in a good position without relying on an external device. If you're someone who's dealing with persistent pain, we've found that the shapes and the postures that you're getting into are directly affecting and perpetuating the soreness or the dysfunction that you're experiencing, then forcing yourself into a better position for a short amount of time is potentially an advantageous thing for you to do. And what I mean by that is, if you know that the positions or the shapes that you naturally get into on the computer or at the assembly line or while you're driving or on the couch watching TV aren't necessarily good enough for what we're looking for, and if the positions that you're getting into are creating tension and load and dysfunction that are relating to your aches and pains, then clearly putting yourself into a better position and forcing yourself into a better position can be a very advantageous thing for you to do. So when we're putting on a postural brace, we want to make sure that we're very closely monitoring where your shoulder posture is. And to make sure that you're in a good position, we want to make sure that you're up nice and tall, shoulders comfortably back, and there's enough tension through this brace to maintain that shape and not let you dump into a bad position. But ultimately, we need to get you to the point where you don't need to use this anymore. So once you feel like you've gone through that period of time where your symptoms have started to regress, you feel like things have started to free up a little bit more, we need to make sure we're working through specific strength exercises to take away the need from this. And the interesting thing about a postural brace and taking off a postural brace is one of the best ways to strengthen your posture is to make sure that you get yourself into a good posture and hold yourself there. Now we can do a lot of exercises like shrugs and rows and back extensions and a lot of other things to help speed up the conditioning of those areas, but nothing beats being in this shape against gravity, asking your tissue to stay there for a period of time. We also need to make sure that your brain maps out this position naturally so that it realizes that this is a valuable shape to maintain. So if you're someone who finds that despite your best efforts, you keep defaulting back to a position or you keep catching yourself in a less than ideal shape, it's really important that you take the time to break those habits and break those situations, take time out of that shape, reset the dial, and come back into a better position again to make sure that your brain can gradually tolerate that more and more and more, develop the necessary muscular strength and conditioning to make this feel more comfortable and natural for you without needing to rely on a brace long term. Further to this, if you are someone that has had persistent pain for a long time, if you have some very stiff upper back back tissue, some very stiff shoulder tissue, your neck's very stiff, and you need to force yourself to use something to change that environment where just holding yourself isn't necessarily aggressive enough to make those changes, then by all means commit to using a shoulder postural brace or a postural brace in general. Give it a week, reassess how you feel, spend some time out of the brace at the end of that week, see if it's easy for you to get back into a good position, make sure that you're not losing any of the muscular strength and endurance that you need to hold that position. And if you feel like things are relatively good and you've made some progress but not enough progress in your mobility and your soreness, then keep coming back to the brace to try and turn those dials enough to see those progressions and those changes over time. And if you are someone who is committing to using a postural brace over a longer period of time, please make sure you're also working on your strength and conditioning to minimize or optimize the process that you're going through. Because not only would you hopefully be able to sort of reduce any reliance on the brace by continuing to do strength training through your back and neck and shoulders, but as those tissues are freeing up and as your brain's rewiring and remapping out that better position, you want to make sure that you're using that new range, those new postures as much as possible. But as we've said with a lot of things on this channel, make sure that you have an exit strategy for this at some stage so that you don't feel like you have to rely on this. Because again, if you do rely on this too much, we can't promise you that your musculoskeletal system won't be poorer for it, despite having the best intentions for using it. So let me know in the comments down below whether you've used a postural brace before and what your experiences with that may have been. Please consider leaving a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you like this type of content. Please consider leaving a super thanks if you want to help support the channel. But with that being said, I genuinely hope that was interesting and a little bit of a guide as to how you can navigate a postural brace going forwards. Let me know how you went, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.